All right, guys. So I'm going to give you a little bit of help making your world and making your landscape and getting everything set up in Unreal with foliage and a good landscape and a good landscape shader and all of that. So to start, we are going to um, just make the landscape. That's what we need. And I'm going to use real world height data. I'm going to pull it from about the location that I was sent on Google Earth. You can pull height data from Google Earth, but it's proprietary. You have to pay Google for it. But I found another site called Tangram Height Mapper that has the Earth mapped out as a height map, and you can use that commercially completely free. So uh, first off, we're going to make a new level in Unreal. So here I already have Unreal open, uh, my own little project, whatever. And we're going to do a new level. And just so we don't have to set up all the lighting and stuff, I'm assuming you know how to do that. If you need help with that, let me know, and I can do another one on setting a really good atmospheric scene. But as it stands, we're just going to go with the default. It's already lit. There are a few things we're going to want to add to make the landscape look good, but at the moment, we're just going to make a landscape. That's all we're focusing on. So we want to you, you have your viewport here. You have your default level loaded, and then go up to modes and go into landscape. So now your landscape, you're going to want to figure out the set, and it'll tell you your overall resolution of your landscape here. So we're going to make it a little bigger, right? You need more space. So we're going to double the number of quads and actually make the sections a little bit bigger. Whoops, that was the wrong button. There we go. So we have basically a kilometer square, 1017 by 1017. So now I'm going to make a height map that is exactly that size from real world data. So once we create our landscape, you'll see you have an option here for a height map. So we don't have one yet, and we're going to go make that right now. So we're going to go out of this project. We're going to go over to Google. I have your spot brought up on my map, and if we zoom out, we can see that that is in France, kind of around here, close to the Switzerland border, whatever. So we are going to go to, you can just Google Tangram Height Mapper. I've already got it saved here, but if you just Google Tangram Height Map, it'll take you to the GitHub, so you can just go straight there. And so now you have the whole world reduced into height data. You'll see that you have some exposure controls over here to control how high everything is and how much contrast there is. We're not going to mess with that. I'm going to take the map. Once I pull the map out, I'm going to put it into a photo program and edit the exposure anyway. So if we go in and look, so here we have Spain. I am going to turn up the exposure for a bit just so we can kind of see where we need to be. And we know that it's right around in here. So we're going to zoom in and try and find a spot for us to use. And the nice thing about Tangram is if you give it time, it will update the resolution, and you can go in really, really deep and get some really good landscape data uh, from things. Remember, when you make your height map, the more white something is, the brighter it's, or the higher it's going to be. So if you have any weird noise on your map, just really hard white spots, they're gonna show up as giant spears shooting into the sky in Unreal once you use it as a height map. But I'll show you how to go in and fix all of that. So let's go get a little bit, let's find a good spot, give it a second and let it update the resolution. I want something, honestly, you're building a big neighborhood. We want it mostly flat with maybe some detail stuff in the background, and I think this should work fairly well. We have this nice big patch in the middle. I'm not sure I like that. And playing with the height maps it's fun, but it can be a bit tricky sometimes getting it just right. So here we go. There we go. Now this is going to be really high, so we're going to take this into affinity and auto expo and fix it. We're going to fix the exposure. You have a couple ways to do this depending on how much detail and how big you want your map to be. You can always take multiple screenshots of different sections and then go stitch them together For this demo, we're not going to do that. If you need help doing that or to see how to do that, let me know and I can show you. So here we have a nice spot that's fairly even, nice, good, even coloring here. So we're going to have a nice flat space here with good detailing, good rivers, and good mountains around it. So let's try that. So once we have this, we're just going to say export. All right, cool. So now it's going to kick out a file. And you can do this in Photoshop. I use Affinity Photo. So I'll show you how I do it in there. It's almost the same in Photoshop. So now we're going to want to make a new document, and we want it to be exactly the same size as our map. Let's pretend that the pixels are Unreal units. So we're going to make 1017 by 1017, because if we go over and look at our landscape, well, it's not showing it anymore because I already created it, but it was 1017 by 1017. So we're going to make that exactly the same size. You can leave the DPI at 72, but under color, make sure that you have it set to 16-bit grayscale. Otherwise, Unreal freaks out. So now you have your square, and we are going to go get our height map that we just downloaded. Oop. And drop it in. And then I'm going to go position it. And you'll see that it's a little short, right? It's just a little small. So we need to, this is why I said you can stitch sections together. Take multiple screenshots, and it will give you a better landscape and better detail if you do that. But for now, we're just going to do this. And we're just going to stretch it down to fill up the space. It looks fine. But it is entirely too bright. This is going to be a crazy, crazy map. This river is going to look like a giant canyon. So I am going to go over to my adjustments and go down to exposure. And I am going to adjust the exposure and honestly pull it way back. The height maps are touchy sometimes. Now, this being so dark, it's going to push your map way down below the horizon, but that's okay. You can always move your map in Unreal. So here we have what I think is going to be a pretty good height map. So we're going to make that into a PNG, and we'll just call it test height. Cool. So now, when we're in Unreal, you have your landscape, and it's all made, right? You can't see. I mean, this is your landscape, right? It's this big giant the space here, so we're going to make a height map on that. So go over to your height map and right click and then click import from file and go get your height map and pop it in, and boom, so here you have your landscape. Nice detail, looks really good. Actually, we kind of nailed it first try with the exposure. I feel like this looks pretty solid. You got plenty of flat ground over here. Say you wanted more mountains over here with a big sculpting brush. If you want to make it high, it will preserve detail as long as you only make a couple strokes. The more and more you draw, the more and more of this detail you'll lose, and it'll just look like a plain smooth landscape. So, but say we wanted this region over here to be a little more mountainous. You see I got this big giant brush over here, 20,000, and I'm just gonna just draw in a little bit to pull that up and make it a little more mountainous. And I just feel like it needs a little more variety. So I'm gonna dip it down. Maybe we'll put a water feature over here, something like that. And yeah, so you have this pretty awesome landscape that you've pulled in. And let's go run around. Let's see how actually big it is. And it looks good. There's lots of granular detail there, lots of neat kind of details on the mountains and the ground, and but it's not so much that when you're up close it's overwhelming. I think it looks pretty good. It's a pretty solid landscape. So that's a really easy way to create your landscape. Now I'll show you a couple more tricks that I like to use. One of them is, I mean, one thing that every scene needs, we're going to go back into select mode, and we're going to add, and what's it called? Exponential Height Fog. And we're just going to drag that right in. And you can tweak a lot of settings here, but it really adds a layer of just depth to your atmosphere and makes your world look so much better. And it hides hard edges. You have lots of settings over here to play with. I'm not going to get super into it. Play with it yourself. It's really, really good. Far better than just the atmospheric fog. I feel like every scene needs the exponential height fog. It's just a necessary thing. So now we have that done, and the landscape's looking pretty good. So the one other thing that I was saying I would like to do, let's see, I put the fog in, we put the landscape in. Oh, one other trick to sculpt features and stuff that don't just look round. So if we go back into our landscape mode and we're in sculpting, and let's get a smaller brush just so you can kind of see what I mean, what I'm talking about. So here we go. We pull out this, and we just have this, kind of perfectly round mound. There's no detail on there. It's very round. Now it is pulling up some of the detail from the land around it, but you can see that the more I draw, the less detail it has, and it's just looking like a big round mountain. And compared to the rest of the very broken up landscape, it just looks kind of lousy. It's too smooth. So what I do is when I sculpt, I use an alpha. So if you go up here to your brush, so you have circle here, and then you have all these different options. I'll use an alpha, and then I have a whole bunch on here that I like to use to get neat breakup in your landscape. So now if I draw with that, it's going to sculpt with all of that surface detail from the alpha and give you nice breakup on the landscape and make it look much, much more natural. Much more like it should. And let's make a nice big brush here, and you can see, so now we're sculpting in mountains that are going to have all that great detail and look really, really good without having any height information on it. And you can do the same thing when you dig in, and you can get all kinds of neat landscape features there to fix any problems that you had on your height map. So we're going to leave it at that for the first lesson. I will go into setting up a landscape shader the next time I have a chance to record for you guys.